SFLC
Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the latest episode of the SFLC Podcast. I am Ryan Sprague here talking everything MMA, UFC, Bellator, everything that you can think of. And we are joined back. Of course, I want to give a huge shout out to one of my very close friends who's been a regular on this show for some time now, to a point where probably we're just going to have to do a regular segment with him, from Nutrition, Mr. Lou Giordano. Lou, how are we doing, my man?
Always good whenever I'm on one of your shows, so I definitely can't complain. And how are you, Rob?
Absolutely. Now, obviously, we've been talking back and forth. You know, you've had your ups and downs in the weight management field, and we will get into that and kind of talk about that a little bit moving forward, with the success of Jose Shorty Torres in his UFC debut, and Jessie Jess with the way that she's been making weight, and Bean Ewan, and every one of those fighters. However, first things first, UFC 226 going on, all fighters making weight except for one. Michael Chiesa came in at 1.5 pounds, 157.5 pounds. Missing weight. He's going to have to forfeit a portion of his purse. Now, Lou, Michael is not a repeat offender. This is his first missed weight in the UFC. Are you shocked that Chiesa missed weight?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I know Mike. We spoke a few times. We were supposed to work together a while ago. I think he's a great guy, great fighter. And it's really hard to say what happens. Again, as you said, you know, I've had my ups and downs with my clients, and I know what actually goes on behind closed doors, and I also know what actually gets put out to the press, and most of the time the two stories never match. So it's really difficult to say as to what happened. Am I shocked? I don't think I'm shocked at anybody missing weight, regardless of who they are. I do know that there are a lot of things that people can do to prevent that from happening. But, you know, he's never missed weight before, so it is kind of shocking. Again, I'm not sure as to what really happened, you know, fight week and the weeks leading up to it.
And this, obviously, Michael Chiesa fights out of Sick Jitsu with Rick Little. Rick's been on the show before. He's a friend of the show. This would not be the first time that UFC and Dana White have probably taken shots at Mike Chiesa's camp. Do you think that this is a camp problem, or is this straight nutrition?
That's a good question. You know, I've been around a lot of different camps, and everybody has a different philosophy. People who have no clue about nutrition, they have their philosophy on nutrition. It's just like a lot of things, you know, just like the keyboard warriors who've never competed, and they're the ones giving, striking advice to a fighter that, maybe lost. So again, it's really tough to say if it's a camp issue, if it's an individual issue. For me, what it all boils down to, and what I've learned in the 4 years that I've been doing this, working with multiple clients, and this is no dig at anybody specific, but if I had to put one word on it, it's a discipline issue. That's really what it comes down to, in my opinion. It's a discipline issue, whether that be discipline within the camp, whether that be discipline within the fighter, whether that be discipline within, the coaches. As a matter of fact, I think Eddie Alvarez probably said it best. He put out a tweet not too long ago saying that, if you miss weight, it's not your nutritionist's fault. It's not your meal prep company's fault. It's not your coach's fault. It's not the travel. It's not this. It's not that. It's not the early weigh-ins. It's your responsibility. And I do think that there's a lot of truth behind that. However, if you are following a strict protocol from somebody who, whether they do or they don't know what they're doing, that's when things kind of get gray and a little tricky for sure.
And it didn't take long for Michael Chiesa to basically say, and I think he even said it on stage, this is his last fight at 155. He misses it once, and either he's scared or he just saw how hard this weight cut was this time around. Do you think that he'll fight at 155 again, or do you believe him? Like he's gonna fight Pettis, and then that's gonna be the end of it at 155 pounds?
I think a lot depends on his performance. Listen, Johny Hendricks said the same thing. After he missed welterweight, he said, "That's it. I'm going up 185." And what happened when he went to 185? He wasn't working with anybody with his nutrition, and he missed 185. Here's the thing. I'm so tired of people making suggestions like, "Oh, you need to add weight classes. Fighters need to fight if they're walking around weight, and they need to push the weight back, the weigh-ins back to later in the day." I hate to break it to you. None of that solves the problem. The only thing that solves the problem is what I said 3 years ago when I was the only one saying it before the Performance Institute came along. I was the only one saying it, fighting for it, and arguing that fighters need to be more disciplined with their diets and walk around much lighter and healthier all year round. The problem is that a lot of these guys will get upwards of the 40 and 50 pound mark above their weight class, not eating healthy food, and then when they get the call that they got to make weight in 6 weeks, they think that they could just diet for 1 week, water load, and make weight, and when they don't, they can say their body is shutting down, I need to go up in weight, there needs to be more weight classes. No, more weight classes is just going to make the fighters think that they can walk around even heavier.
And you mentioned the Performance Institute, which kind of leads perfectly into this. One UFC fighter, Tim Elliott, didn't take long to go to Twitter, and he said the people who are missing weight are not doing their nutrition for free at the UFC Performance Institute. They are actually paying guys to help them miss weight. Do you interpret that as kind of a shot?
Yeah, I don't know Tim personally, so I'm never going to talk bad about anybody really, except for one person, and you know who that is. But I'm not going to really talk bad about anybody. I think that that's a ridiculous statement. I think it's comical. Anytime I think something is ridiculous, I tend to laugh at it because it's a joke to me. It's easy to say that, well, listen, Uriah Hall was working with the Performance Institute, and he was hospitalized and didn't make weight. So you can't just sit there and say that everybody who works with the Performance Institute makes weight and they're not paying they're not paying them. It's only the ones that are paying people that make weight. Again, you really got to take everything what people say with a grain of salt. Mike Dolce put out a comment that he's the only person that's undefeated on the scales. Well, Mike Dolce has also been known to walk away from fighters that he has that are really close to missing weight. He walks away from them. He's no longer working with them. So that way, when they do miss weight, he can't be blamed and he can go and put out a ridiculous statement like that. So I just think what Tim is doing is just promoting the Performance Institute. Listen, I was there. A good friend of mine, Heidi, who works there, gave me an amazing tour of the place. You have chefs that are making you whatever you want to eat. There's really no excuse for you to miss weight, whether you're part of their Performance Institute team or not. I'm sorry, there's just not a reason for you to miss weight.
You mentioned Mike Dolce and how he boasted that he's undefeated on the scales. But if I recall, that statement is no longer true. And I'm trying to figure out exactly where it was. If you'll give me just a minute, it was not too long ago that one of Mike Dolce's fighters did miss weight. So I don't think he can say that anymore.
Well, according to Mike, he'll come up with some bullshit excuse and, he'll like he always does, and he'll lie about it like he does about everything else. Listen, Johny Hendricks missed weight with him and then had to go back and re-weigh in. So he's a joke. It's a joke. It's one of those things that, when USADA came along, how many people were starting to point fingers at fighters, right? How many times did people say, how many careers did USADA ruin, right? How many times did you hear that?
A lot. Too many.
Well, what happened to so-and-so with USADA? What happened to so-and-so? You know what question I want answered?
What's that?
What happened to Mike Dolce's business when USADA came along? How many people has he actually worked with since USADA came along.
That's a really good question.
So what does that tell you? I know what it tells me. So he's just a clown, and like I said, I don't anything he says is irrelevant.
Oh, and we'll get more into Mr. Dolce in a little bit. But the only other thing that I can look at from UFC 226, and something I want to ask you at, is Daniel Cormier weighed in for his fight against Stipe. He weighed in actually heavier than Stipe, I believe at like 246 pounds. Now, this is a guy who is notorious for being able to hit 205, albeit that's not the easiest weight cut for him. But with him weighing in at 246 and knowing that he's ending his career, is this the last time we're going to see DC fight light heavyweight? Is he just heavyweight from here until he retires?
Yeah, I think DC is a perfect example, and I'm sorry that I do have to correct you on one thing. I mean, the man weighed 206.2. Let's not forget that either. He did miss weight by almost a pound and a half when they let him fight Rumble. That good old towel trick, but nobody really talks about that. But here, he's the perfect example, and he puts it out there. He does not have discipline when it comes to the nutrition. And my argument is, why is that okay? You hear these guys, he busts their butt, or he busts their butt in the gym, and they're running 75 hills a day, and they're doing jiu-jitsu for 65 hours straight. But it's a joke when it comes, I kind of eat, fried chicken and hamburgers and drink beer and do all this stuff. Why is that okay? Why are you so disciplined in everything else, every other area of mixed martial arts, but your nutrition, and then when it comes to making weight, you miss weight and you look to blame other people? I mean, that's just, that's ridiculous.
Well, and Daniel Cormier obviously has been a very storied fighter throughout his career. And yes, we all kind of sweep the towel trick under the rug. I think at this point, DC might have solidified his legacy to where we might look at that in hindsight and just kind of giggle or snicker and say, oh, well, it happened to DC. It happened once. The man's only really lost once. And, that was to John Jones, even though there was one that was overturned to a no contest. So DC's one that obviously raises an eyebrow. But something that I want to get into with, before we get into, Jose Shorty Torres and Jesse Just, the fun stuff, is the females who are weighing in at 135. Now, if this is all true, and Lou, you and I have talked about weight to exhausting measures, but what I'm gaining from this is there are professional fighters who are fighting at 135 pounds that, from the calculations you're telling me, are walking around their natural weight heavier than I am. And it's known that women just carry more fat cells. That has to be even worse for the female fighters.
It is, and again, it all stems from just, it all stems from a miscommunication and a bad concept that the person who's walking around bigger and heavier has the advantage. I've been saying it from day one, and unfortunately, I should have just stuck to my guns and only worked with people who actually listened to me and followed protocol outside of camp, and all would be right in the world. But again, you have people that are walking 30, 40, 50 pounds above their weight class. And then, to the public, it looks as if this weight cut is killing them. They can't just do this anymore. Somebody like Chiesa, again, to go back to him, Chiesa's a lean guy to begin with. There are some people who just really shouldn't be fighting at certain weight cuts. There are those people that shouldn't be fighting at certain weight cuts. Johny Hendricks is a guy who should have never fought at 185. In my opinion, Johny Hendricks is a guy who could fight at 155. And even so with the females, they're walking around heavier because they're listening to the other people in the gym. And again, not many people that I have spoken to or I have worked with really eat clean all year round. They kind of just eat whatever they want. It's a joke to them. And then when they get the call for camp, it's like, okay, camp starts, time to tighten some things up. And again, go back 5 years. Go back 5 years. How many times did fighters miss weight? Very, 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 very rarely did you see fighters missing weight. And it has nothing to do with the early morning weigh-ins. You know, these athletes are just walking around bigger and bigger, and not bigger in a good way. Here's the question I have for you. And again, you said it. You and I talked about this on the air, off the air, so much. My question is, and I pose this question to every person that I speak with. As a matter of fact, when I was at UFC Chicago, I got to be in the back and speak with Jeff Nowitzki, who's the head of the USADA, who I think is an amazing person and does an amazing job. And Jeff and I talked for about 45 minutes. My argument is this. Joe Rogan has said it. Dana White has said it. Other people have said it, that, fighters just need to fight closer to their natural walk-around weight. So my question is, what constitutes as natural walk-around weight? If I'm a guy who eats like crap and I'm eating burgers and french fries and drinking beer, okay, and I'm 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50 pounds above my weight class versus I'm eating healthy. I'm not eating a strict diet. If I want a burger here and there, fine. If I want a drink here and there, fine. But I'm eating a very, a clean diet, managing my weight all year round, and I'm only 15 pounds above my weight, then what's my natural weight? If I fight at 170 and I'm walking around at 220 because I'm eating hamburgers and drinking beer, well, then should I fight at heavyweight?
I think the answer is yes. I think that you should be fighting at that if that's the route that the UFC and professional MMA decides to take. But you and I both know that that's not the way that they're going to go. I think that the UFC is going to do everything they can to continue to generate revenue dollars, obviously, because it is a business, but also they're going to do what they can to wash their hands of any fighter missing weight. It couldn't possibly be the UFC's fault. And you even mentioned it earlier. We ended up seeing Uriah Hall, who was working with the Performance Institute, and he got hospitalized. That can't be good either.
Correct. Well, and then you got the Performance Institute saying that Uriah Hall wasn't listening to him, and then you have Uriah Hall saying that he was doing everything they were telling him to do. It's like anything. There's always three sides to every story. You want to know how you fix this? There's a real simple way how you could fix people missing weight. I said this from day one, and again, I said it to Jeff Nowitzki as well. And I'm not going to speak for Jeff. I know what his response to me was, and let's just say that we came to agree. But here, it's real simple. I think USADA is great. I think USADA going and doing random testing is great. It levels the playing field. But when USADA does the random blood and urine testing, let USADA do a random weight check. Pick your weight class. And the rule is that you're only allowed to be no more than 15 to max 20 pounds above your weight class all year round. If you are heavier, you get fined. And then you have to be no more than 10 pounds coming into fight week. If you are heavier, then you will be fined. It's real simple. But again, the problem, I think, is a lot of fighters, and not just fighters. Again, I'm in the health and fitness industry 18 years. I am trying to help people lose weight and change their lives mentally and physically. It's not just fighters. The leading cause of death in America is coronary heart disease due to overeating and lack of exercise. So not just fighters are not the only people who lack discipline when it comes to their food. It's majority of people lack discipline when it comes to their food. They just have to become more disciplined. It's really that simple.
Well, isn't there another aspect? And let's flip this conversation on its head for a minute. We talk about the long-term factors of poor diet and lack of exercise. Well, let's look at these upper echelon fighters and athletes who, for probably 6 months of the year are eating horribly. And then the other 6 months of the year, they're, training their butt off. They're sweating it out in the sauna. They're running. Then all of a sudden they try and clean up their diet. Well, your body's not going to react well to that either because it's such a quick turnaround for your body.
Correct, 100%. And you don't have to be a weight management specialist, a nutritionist. All you have to be is a human being with some common sense to know that is not healthy for you. It's just not healthy. And if you look at a lot of wrestlers, if you look at a lot of wrestlers who have been competing at a young age for many, many years, who have been cutting a ton of weight, most of them develop an eating disorder. And that's just not healthy. I mean, it's just not safe. It's not healthy. And I'm sorry, Ryan, but, and listen, people could say whatever they want about me. I've exposed myself. I have put myself out there, my true self, my honest and true opinions and feelings and facts. No smoke and mirrors like these other people. I have put myself out there constantly, and I preach the same thing. I genuinely give a shit about people's health mentally and physically. I do not care about my business. If I cared about my business, I would have walked away from the fighters that were going to miss weight, and I wouldn't have lost 15,000 followers. I wouldn't have walked away from the industry. I would have made a ton of money. No, I do it because I genuinely care about it, and when there's something not right going on, I'm going to walk away. I'm not going to promote or preach things or do things that I know are unethical that other people do. It's just not right.
We've had a lot of time to talk about some of the poor choices that fighters and some weight management specialists make. And, we've talked about Mike Dolce, and, you brought up the concept of USADA, and we know what happens now with USADA. We know that the second that an IV or a needle goes into a fighter, that's kind of it for them. They're off that card, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you were talking about how this happened a few years back, and USADA wasn't involved. Elaborate a little bit on that as far as what it would mean for Mike Dolce to not have the ability to, have IVs or have needles going into a fighter.
Again, I said that day one when the very first interview, if you guys could fact check, the very first interview I did was with Bloody Elbow. And it was right around the time when the USADA was coming in, and there was the I don't think it was banned yet. The conversation was, the UFC is looking to ban the use of IVs. And I remember listening, which is probably one of the only times I've ever listened to an interview that he's done because I just can't listen to him. But Mike Dolce and George Rockler both did interviews. Both saying, Dolce, I'll quote Dolce saying that if you take away the ability to use IVs, dehydrate, fighters will die. He was very against the banning of IV pre and post weigh-ins, very against it. The sense that I got from Lockhart was that he was against it, but it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't like it can't be done. In my argument, and the reason why I called them up and said, hey, I want to give my version, is because the way I'm reading it is both of these guys are against the ban, I'm for the ban. And I remember the headline, Lou Giordano is for the ban of IV use because it means fighters will be fighting at 100%. Holy shit, was I never more wrong in my life. And the reason I said that is because I truly thought that if you took away the IV, it's going to force fighters to do things more natural, safer for them, walk around lighter. And again, Jose Torres is the prime example of that. Never used an IV and has made weight, all 8 times. But anyway, and it was getting rid of the ban. And what I actually did say was, maybe this guy is arguing, to not ban IVs because maybe that'll hinder his business. And where has he been since then? How many fighters has he actually worked with since then? Because in my opinion, he's relied on giving athletes, I won't say certain things because I don't know for a fact the names of certain things that he may or may not have used before and then after. These people forget, man. Listen, the MMA community is a very small community. They all talk. Everybody talks. Everybody talks. I know things that happen with many different athletes, and it's just not my style to go put people on blast like that. But if you're doing something unethical or you're using something you shouldn't be, then maybe you should just be vocal about it. Listen, I'm an open book. You want to know anything and everything that I've ever used and done? I'll be more than happy to tell you. I guarantee you the others won't do the same.
We just found out...
Like using a wheelchair.
Oh, God, yeah, the wheelchair. We haven't seen that since USADA has come in. Not much. We haven't seen fighters who are just so physically dehydrated and so mentally and physically exhausted that they can't even get to the scale of their own volition?
No, they have. You just haven't seen it. When we fought Gastelum got wheeled into the wheelchair. I believe Misha Tate had a gurney waiting for her. So it unfortunately does happen. It does happen. I listen. None of my fighters ever needed a wheelchair or a gurney, but it is what it is.
And let's not forget that one of those fighters was arguably one of the greatest fighters in MMA history in Jon Jones. Now, there was a little bit of, I don't want to say backlash, but there was some questions that people had with Jon Jones in that fight where he worked with you, where they expected Jon Jones to be able to finish the fight and he didn't. Now, is the weight management ever going to be a concept that you have to factor into that discussion?
I'll say this, and again, and I mean this with respect, that a lot of spectators, sometimes, and I'm a spectator with other sports as well. I'm a spectator with the World Cup, and I can have my opinions. I'm just as uneducated as most, a lot of fans are that have never played the sport, done the sport, or tried anything. Number one, if you look at all the people, and even media people, that have criticized Jon Jones for that fight against OSP. My question to them is, did you live with that man for 9 weeks, every day? No, you didn't. I did. I was with him for 9 weeks every day. I got a true behind-the-scenes assessment of who Jon Jones really is as a person, who Jon Jones is as an athlete. You only see and hear what gets put out in public. You don't see what happens and what goes on behind closed doors. Jon obsesses over his opponent. That's what makes him the champion that he is. Jon would watch wrestling tapes of DC when DC was 5 years old because he understands that, you develop certain tendencies at a young age and then you keep them throughout your career, and he's going to exploit that. What makes, and let me be clear, Jon and I don't work together anymore. He actually doesn't follow me on social media, having nothing to do with him or I. That's just some behind-the-scenes business BS that has nothing to do with us. So I'm not sitting here, bragging about Jon Jones because we're best friends. I'm just being brutally honest. Jon is the best fighter in the world because Jon dissects everything that his opponents do and attacks them with their best act, and he's better than them. So when Jon found out that he wasn't fighting DC, I think it was like 10 days prior, a totally different opponent, I think Jon fought a very, very, very smart fight. He broke OSP's arm with a kick. It's not like he didn't do anything. He performed really well. He just fought a very smart fight and won a 5-round unanimous decision. And let's not be crazy. OSP is not some chump. OSP is a very, very, very dominant, light heavyweight. So, again, you're never going to please everybody. You're going to have haters, and you're going to have people that want to run around. It's just like when he popped this time. They're roping it into everything else. And if you actually read all the real reports and the tests, you'll understand that the little trace of whatever they found, the little trace of story that they found in his system, they proved would have done nothing to enhance his performance whatsoever. But unfortunately, you get pegged on that kind of stuff.
Before we move forward on that, I want to shift focus really quickly about the small trace you were talking about with Jon Jones. Now, obviously, it has been reported, currently up and ready to go, September 15th, Canelo Alvarez versus Triple G. That fight was supposed to happen on May 5th, and then all of a sudden, a month or 6 weeks prior to that, Canelo Alvarez tests positive for a banned substance. Now, this is a banned substance that it was argued was in tainted meat that he could have consumed. Contrary to Jon Jones's thing, if we were to take that into Canelo Alvarez, do you more believe that Canelo Alvarez didn't knowingly take this supplement, or do you think that the meat that he said that he was eating was just kind of an excuse?
Here's my take on that, and Ryan, you know me better than most. I'm always going to be honest, and I'm not going to, just fluff what I'm going to say to protect people. There are people who I respect a lot. There are people who I am friendly with and communicate with that have tested positive and then have had it be proven a tainted supplement. I'm sorry, I'm not going to lie or deny something that for me personally, it's a moral thing. There's no reason people should be taking supplements that are on the banned list. You should not pop for a tainted supplement. I really feel that way. USADA provides a list of approved supplements you can take. Now, if you are taking those supplements and one of those supplements comes back tainted, that's a whole different ballgame. But if I'm taking a supplement that is not on that list and I pop and I'm able to prove that it was tainted, well, I shouldn't have even been on it in the first place. That's my take on it. That's my opinion on it. There's no need for it.
So this was something that was probably a little bit of a cop-out for Canelo. Without knowing the intricacies of it, sounds like it was a cop-out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that listen, I know a company, I'm not going to say the company's name, they did sponsor fighters back in the day, but there was a company based out of New Jersey that was known for putting real steroids in their products. Because the way it worked is nobody searches these products. There's no governing body that tests all these products and says, hey, wait a second, you can't sell that because that has Dianabol in it or whatever. So what happens is this company puts out these products, they hit the shelves, they market the crap out of them. They have these models modeling these supplements, which are such false advertising. And then you have the people buying them, and they're getting these amazing results. So then finally, somebody goes, wait a second, this product's flying off the shelf. We know that there's no real natural product that a supplement can make that can give the results that this thing is getting. Let's test it. They test it tests positive for a steroid. They go back to the company scratches its head and goes, oh, well, we didn't know that. It must have been contaminated. We pull it off the shelf. They remove that steroid out of there. They put some other BS vitamin in there, and they change the bottle, and they write new and improved formula, put it back on the shelf, and now they're going to sell twice as much because you're dealing with the placebo effect now. So there are companies who are known for putting real steroids in their products. That's the fact. That's not something that I'm making up.
And it's not just steroids. Much like you wouldn't name names.
It could be a laundry list of things.
Yeah, I wouldn't name names. I remember I was shortly out of college, and there was a product that I was taking, and it was a diet supplement, and it produced insane results. It was very good. And then all of a sudden, because I wasn't a professional fighter, I fell off the diet and the gym, and then I wanted to get back to my shape. I went to try to find that same product, and I ended up going to the store where I bought it, and they said, oh, yeah, we don't carry that anymore. Well, why? The FDA ended up pulling it from the shelves because they found that there were traces of methamphetamines in there.
Right, exactly. It happens all the time. You can go into a vitamin shop, GNC, and you can see a product on the shelf, and 6 months later, it won't be there.
And nobody
That's
ever
why
questions.
my athletes, the ones that I recommend, there are no performance-enhancing supplements that any of the athletes that I work with on a consistent basis take. It's all minimal probiotics, digestive enzymes, fish oils, B complex, an alkalizer and detoxifying greens, fiber supplements, maybe a multivitamin, maybe some zinc and magnesium. That's it. There's no, test booster 1000 or I don't even recommend branched chain amino acids. Like there's none of that stuff. So it's.
And it'll be very interesting to see how the UFC, how professional MMA companies move forward with this, especially since the UFC, having got a little bit of contract with ESPN, Disney, ABC, however you want to market that. Look, there's some real money in that, and real contracts were signed. So these fighters, they're not going to be able to continue to get away with either testing positive or missing weight or having to withdraw because they're too exhausted. We saw it with Max Holloway. Whether he had a concussion or what, we don't know officially what it was. But something is
No.
off, and these fighters, they're going to continue to try and compete at the highest level, but it needs to be safe. And you and I both know that the money that was invested into the UFC over the past few years, they're going to take every step that they can to make sure that these things don't happen. So we don't know what the future holds for weight management, for performance building, and everything that entails in that. But it'll be certainly something to keep an eye on as we get out of 2018 and into 2019, that's for sure. But Lou, you and I
100%.
But we could talk about this all day long, and we have many times. But obviously, you know, you've mentioned how you've had your successes, and you mentioned how you've had your shortcomings. And we recently learned of probably soon to be Hall of Famer Johny Hendricks retiring. Now, we know that he kind of fizzled out. It wasn't a burnout then to fade away situation. Obviously, you kind of jumped on a live grenade more than a couple of times when it came to Johny Hendricks. So when Johny started missing weight, when he decided to go up into a weight class, when he was in that in-between time, you know, you really took a lot of flack for that. And you were the kind of person that was never going to blame somebody else. You know, you would always end up taking the blame yourself. With Johny Hendricks, was it right for you to take that blame, or was Johny just not doing what Johny was supposed to do ahead of his fights?
Here's how I answer that question. I think that it's always right, and I'm sure people will, you know, accuse me of being a martyr, you know, oh, he's taking responsibility because, no, this is how I honestly feel, and I've always done this. I could sit here and I'll use Ryan as the example. Okay, Ryan, if you hire me to be your, you know, weight management specialist and your trainer, and I put you on a protocol, okay, and you're not following the protocol, and you're not seeing the results or seeing the numbers that you want to see, but you know you're not following protocol, whose fault is that? Is that my fault as your trainer or your fault?
Well, it's absolutely my fault.
So this is how I see it, just to explain it a little bit better. I don't see it as your fault. I see it as my fault. And the reason I see it as my fault is because the way my brain works, and listen, maybe I need to see a psychiatrist to figure out why and how my brain works this way. But this is how my brain works. My brain works this way by saying, I blame myself because maybe there was something else I could have said to you. Maybe there was another way that I could have gotten through to you. Maybe there was another approach that I could have taken with you. Maybe there was another way that I could have gotten you to wake up and smell the roses and get you on that path and provide even more support, even more discipline. That's the truth. That's who I am as an individual. That's who I've always been, and I'll always be. I will always be convinced that I can cure and save and help everybody in this world. We know that that's not true, but I'm sure as shit always going to try, and nobody's going to get me to change that. As far as Johny Hendricks is concerned, what I will say this is I think him retiring is a good thing. I think Johny was over fighting probably after the Thompson fight, the way that he spoke mentally and emotionally. I think him losing that decision to GSP really, really took a toll on him mentally. I also think him cutting weight since a young kid, he got to the point where he no longer wanted to be told what to do. I mean, there were times, even with me, that he would do things on spite just to piss me off, because it was almost like, you know, he wanted to prove that, you know, I'm not going to listen to you, if that makes sense. And I just realized that he was just over it, you know, mentally. And I think that he had it in his head that he was going to go up to 85 anyway. And then when he chose to go up to 85, him and I chose to, there was no need for me to work with him. And then he ended up missing weight at 85 anyway. So, I mean, obviously that points to a discipline issue. But it's like anything, Ryan, when you've been competing on such a high level for so long, you know, you get burnout. But I do know this, that the people that follow my protocol to a T never miss weight, and there's never an issue. But I still take responsibility, if that makes sense.
It does, but we've looked at fighters who have tried to tell you that they were eating ice chips and that they thought that was okay with them. We saw fighters miss weight, but not once did them or their trainers or their coaches or their management team come out in defense and basically say, yeah, it was not on Lou. It was not on whoever the trainer was, or the weight management specialist was. The weight management specialist was always the one thrown under the bus. We've seen fighters who have said, yeah, I missed weight. The answer is the person I was working with just didn't do the job, so now I'm going to go and find somebody else. It's always passing the buck. And we shouldn't be shocked by this because it happens in every aspect of everyday life. But you would assume some sort of accountability at some point. Why weren't any of these people on the team coming into your defense and saying, no, this isn't Lou's fault. He was not the one that was eating. He was not the one that was following the diet.
That's a good question. And behind closed doors, that is what happened. That's really why you and I talked about this a lot. And I made the public statement that I'm going to be walking away from doing this and working with fighters for the most part. And that's one of the main reasons. And I'll just say the blanket statement that unfortunately a lot of conversations that went on behind closed doors were nowhere near the conversations that actually got put out into the public. And instead of coming out and defending myself and saying, well, wait a second, that's not what we discussed behind closed doors. That's just not who I am as a person. So I took the flack, I took the heat, and at the end of the day, it made me realize, where my loyalty really stands and who my loyalty is truly with. And that's one of the reasons why you still see that I am with Shorty. I am still with B, Lynn, and, it's just one of those things. I don't have that answer. I wish I did. Actually, I wanted that answer for a while, but to be honest with you, Ryan, I've made my peace with it. I've made my peace with it. I've achieved everything that I wanted to achieve, and I stay true to who I am as a person. And what I said 3 years ago holds true today. Fighters need to be more disciplined, walk around no more than 15 pounds above their weight class, and they can and will make weight every single time. The guys that missed weight under my regime were nowhere near 15 pounds above their weight class all season. But that was a mistake that I made. I should have told them to not take the fight at that time. That's another reason why I blame myself, is when I got the call and I was told, hey, we got this opponent, we got this much time, this is my weight, I should have said, are you crazy? No, you're not taking the fighter, you need to work with somebody else. So that's another reason why I blame myself.
And you're right. And you did all but walk away from this. And the thing is, here we are again. We're, 6 to 8 weeks removed from UFC Utica. You get Jose Shorty Torres, who gets a last-minute call 10 days out from a fight night. They need a last-second replacement. 9 days out, you and Shorty are back together like the brothers that you guys are. And Jose Shorty Torres has revealed that he had to lose 26 pounds in 9 days. Not only does he succeed in losing 26 pounds in 9 days, which you would, in any other circumstance, consider absolutely off the wall crazy. But then he turns around and he ends up winning his UFC debut. So why was it different that there are these fighters that were walking around probably a little bit lighter than Shorty was, so far out from where he was supposed to be, but you took the fight with Shorty?
I trust him. I trust him mentally. And the thing about Shorty and myself is that, we develop, when I say this, I mean this, and I'm not going to elaborate on the words because I am telling you, I mean these words. Shorty and I developed a true friendship, a true bond. When Hendricks had missed weight and I flew home and I was very defeated mentally and emotionally, and just really wanted to walk away from the sport altogether. Shorty had no money. He was getting ready to fight for his first flyweight title for Titan. And he got on the plane and he flew out to me because of two reasons. His words. He knew I needed a friend, and he wanted to prove to me that my system does work. And he stayed with me. We made weight. He won the belt, and so forth and so on. So I trust Shorty. I can tell Shorty, and Shorty's going to tell me. I don't have to find out the next day. I had fighters telling me that they woke up and I asked them if they ate or drank anything, and they swore to me that they did it. And then after they made weight, they admitted what they ate and what they drank. So then when you miss weight and I ask you what you ate and what you drank and you tell me nothing, it kind of makes it difficult for me to believe that you did it. I just trust Shorty. And to be honest with you, Ryan, I also knew that I really was at my career's end. I really didn't have much of a career, as far as nutrition was concerned. And I knew that Shorty wanted a UFC contract more than anything. And Shorty deserves that contract more than anybody I know. So if I got him to accept the fight on 9 days' notice and he did miss weight, guess what? Nutrition is somebody who's been in the spotlight, who has been blamed for Pettis missing weight, who has been blamed for Pettis' performance against Holloway, who has been blamed for Hendricks missing weight and been blamed for Hendricks' performances, that guess what? If Shorty missed weight, and then when people found out that he used me to do it, nobody would look at Shorty. Shorty would get no flack. I can go and delete all my social media and walk away knowing that A, number one, our friendship will never change with Shorty. Two, or B, I've taught him so much that he doesn't even need me anymore, so he'll always continue to make weight. And the most important thing, I got Shorty in the UFC, and I can just go on about my life. I don't need the stress and aggravation. I'm not going to sell out like everybody else, and I'm not going to throw people under the bus, to prove my point. And fortunately, he did make the weight, and it was probably one of the scariest fight weeks I've ever had for many reasons.
What were some of those reasons? Because 26 pounds in 9 days is ineffable. I can't even fathom it.
It was tough. I mean, when he called me 9 days out, he called me 10 days out, so he started 9 days. He flew out to me 7 days out, and we got very lucky. But what happened was because it was his UFC debut, he needed to get blood work, he needed a physical, he needed an ultrasound, he needed an MRI, and I think he needed one more test. Thank God we got very, 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 very lucky that my girlfriend's stepfather, Dr. Gary Eshnoff, who's a chiropractor in Montclair, New Jersey, who always sees Shorty when Shorty comes out there. Dr. Eshnoff put in several phone calls to friends and colleagues to get all these tests done so that way we can get it done as soon as possible because we needed to spend as much time cutting weight that we could. We had no time to waste. And we got very lucky that my brother, Anthony, is good friends with the owner of Bear & Birch, which is a Russian banya, a Russian bathhouse in my hometown, Freehold, New Jersey, that stayed open late for us, and they had saunas and steam rooms and cold plunges and hot tubs. Ryan, for 2 days straight, we were there for 7 hours, and having Shorty just having to cycle in between the steam, the sauna, the hot tub, the cold plunge, the steam, the sauna, the hot tub, the cold plunge, and then we had a 4-hour drive to Utica, New York, and then I'm looking at him and his skin looks yellow. And that's when I started to really panic. And I got very nervous. And thank God, Shorty's pain management specialist was with him, Linda Lou, who runs Muscle Motion Mastery. Thank God she was there. Because if she wasn't there, number one, I would have pulled the plug. And number two, I think I would have went crazy because she talked me off the ledge several times. We ended up finding out that it was really just the lighting in the hotel that was making his skin look yellow. But it gave me a heart attack because he's like my brother. I care about him. And I don't care about my career as much as I care about my athletes, as you obviously know.
Other than the fact that his skin turned yellow, you said steam room, sauna, hot tub, cold plunge, repeat. What did he look like physically while he was going through this? Was he eating anything in the midst of these cycles? Or was he just literally eating anything that contained protein and that was it?
Yeah, no, he was having 4 very small meals. I mean, he was having a couple of egg whites and a whole egg for breakfast with some spinach, a couple of vegetables. And then he was getting 2 small meals of grilled chicken, a little bit of avocado, and then some more mixed greens, and then a couple more egg whites before bed. He was still drinking a gallon of water, which is 8 pounds of fluid. A gallon of water all the way up until the day before weigh-ins. The day before weigh-ins, we had to really reduce it to about, I want to say maybe 32 ounces, which is about 2 pounds of fluid. He was running. He was hitting mitts on top of sauning and everything. Physically, he looked great. I mean, he was using the restroom every day, so I knew that he was hydrated and safe. The concern came mentally. When Shorty said to me, I think we were about 2 days out, it was just him and I in the hotel room, and he said to me, well, worst case scenario, this is what he had said, well, worst case scenario, if I do miss weight. And the second I heard him say that, I knew we were in trouble from a mental standpoint. Because Shorty, I know Shorty better than anybody. And I needed to get his mental aspect switched. And I needed to get him to see lower numbers so that he can push himself through. And the other thing that I know about Shorty, and the other reason why I told him to take that fight, is because Shorty's the type of person who refuses to disappoint the people that care about him. And he knew that if he missed weight, what it would do to me. And he also knew that if he made weight, it would prove that my system does work. And it would give me the validation that he felt that I earned and deserved. Which is why when he did make weight, he yelled out, nutrition's back. And it was really just an amazing moment for both of us.
He was drinking a gallon of water a day up until the point where you said you cut it down to about 32 ounces. You read, and everyone's going to have their own opinion on this. I've seen water cuts. Hell, I've been on a water cut where I drink 2 gallons of water one day, 2 gallons of water the next day, a gallon of water day 3, half a gallon day 4, a quarter of a gallon day 5. I am exhausted. I am easily angered. So Which one is the best one? Is there a better water cut, or is there just no room in this sport for any sort of a water cut?
In my professional and non-professional opinion, I don't agree with water loading and water cutting like that. I've never done it with Shorty. I've never done it with my athletes. I don't agree with it. When we showed up there, Jimmy Rivera was working out one night with us, and I overheard him say that he had 4 gallons of water in it. He looked massive. He looked like he was 160 pounds, and then he looked so emaciated on the scale. That doesn't mean that it doesn't work. And I know a lot of people that water load. I just don't agree with it. I don't think that it's right. I think that that's one of the reasons why we did have that issue when Pettis did miss weight the second time. We had a conversation, myself, him, and his fiance, about, maybe adding an extra gallon of water. It really wasn't what I wanted to do, but I went against that, and I take responsibility. I'm a grown man. I should have and could have said no, but I did it, so I take responsibility for it. I just don't agree with it. I just don't think water loading is a good thing and a smart thing to do.
You also got mad at me personally when I told you that I had done
that. Yes, that's right. That's right.
So Shorty Torres, he makes weight. We hear what he ate. We heard the cycle that he went through. We knew that it was mentally exhausting. It was physically exhausting. He steps on the scale, says nutrition is back. 24 hours later, he gets his UFC debut victory. You have all the vindication in the world, but it's short-lived because you got another phone call not too far after that, didn't you?
I did. A fighter by the name of Jesse Jess hit up Shorty and was like, how the hell did you cut 26 pounds in 9 days? And Shorty obviously said my name and said, you need to speak with him. And he put me in contact with her, and she called me that day. And so, yes, my enjoyment was very short-lived from that moment because of the conversation I did have with Jesse Jess.
Now, Jessie Jess had reached out to you, and she was also giving you not a full training camp to get her down to weight. She also turns around and makes weight. Where was she when she called you in comparison to where she should have been weight-wise?
So I didn't know much about her. Again, after I went through what I went through with those other fighters, I kind of scaled back the whole MMA thing, and I just don't pay attention to it as much anymore. And so I didn't know much about her. We just spoke in length for a while, She was working with Lockhart. She's used Lockhart several times. And here's the thing. I think Lockhart's very smart. And I think the way he runs his business is very smart. I believe Lockhart's the guy that just does Fight Week for the most part. And he's 16. And I think he's a smart guy. Our systems are very different, naturally. But she, we spoke, and she was using his protocol and wanted to switch. We were, I think, either 12 days out or 14 days out, and she was still a little over 20 pounds above her weight class. And I knew that if I were to help her, I am jumping right back into the fire. It's not the first time that I got a phone call from somebody that was using one of the other bigger names and wanted to walk away from them that I took over. When Pettis and I first made weight, he was working with Dolce. Dolce didn't think he was going to make weight, so Dolce bailed on him. And then here I come, and he makes weight, and he beats Oliveira. But, the reason why, there's really only one reason why I chose to help her is because of the words that she said to me. And I apologize for the curse, but she flat out said, no matter what, I'm fucking making weight. And knowing that she has that mental discipline and mental toughness, I rolled the dice. She listened to me. She reached out to Shorty several times. I reached out to Shorty to say, hey, do me a favor, just reach out to her and kind of make sure she's doing what I need her to do. And she did it. She made weight. She feasted, made weight, and she fought a great fight. She fought a great fight. I got to have a great conversation with her and her coaches the other day. And she's another one that probably one of the only other ones that I will continue to work with and come up with a solid game plan for her next fight and having a full camp. But I think she was a little more 20 pounds during 2 days out.
So you went 20 pounds in about 7 or 8 days. You went 26 pounds in 9 days. You collectively cut almost 50 pounds from 2 fighters with all of about 2 weeks' notice.
Yeah.
Knowing that you've had full fight camps with people to get them down to weight to find out that they would turn around and not make weight, did you ever have to have discussions with any officials in the UFC or any of the other promotions of fighters that you've worked with where they have kind of shown their discontent with you because these fighters missed weight?
What do you mean by that? I don't know if I understand the question.
Well, earlier I alluded to the fact that we know that Dana White has been less than pleased with certain fight companies and organizations. Did you ever see any backlash from any officials because the fighters that you worked with missed weight?
No, as a matter of fact, the time that Pettis missed weight against Holloway when we were getting ready to weigh in, Dana White came over to me and Anthony. We were sitting down in the back ready to weigh in, and Dana actually came over and had nothing but great things to say to Anthony about, man, it's just a lot of weight, and he was very, very nice about it. And then when we got on stage, Dana White patted me on the back and said, great job, and same thing when Johnny had missed weight. And I talked to Jeff Nowitzki several times. And again, I'm not going to speak for Jeff. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he said one thing and then he's going to come around and say something else. You could certainly ask him, but I do know that Jeff is a fan of my protocol, and I never got any backlash from any of them. Really, the only people that I got backlash from was, my good friend Mike Dolce and a lot of his followers. And, the simple fact that I didn't work with Anthony again or Johnny again, I think did speak a lot of, spoke volume that, if I'm not working with him anymore, then it must have been his fault. And we kind of just let it fall that way. So that's really what it came to. But I did lose about, over 10,000 followers. I got a lot of hate mail, a lot of hate messages, a lot of hate, private messages and a whole bunch of people talking a whole bunch of negative things, But then after Shorty made weight and won, I didn't hear from any of those people again.
It's kind of a shame that you realize that this sport, like any other sport, is going to be waxing and waning. When you're up, people are going to praise you, and when you're down, they're going to kick you. So,
oh yeah, it was a very harsh reality. I mean, when we made weight, against Oliveira, I was the man. I was on top of the world. I came in on 10 days' notice to save the day. I mean, at that point, I think Anthony was on a 4-fight losing streak at 55, and this was his debut at 45, and he was still 30 pounds above his weight class 2 weeks out, and we made weight and he won, and I was on top of the world. I made a decision to walk away from this industry in a much bigger picture because I just want real and genuine and high quality relationships in my life, and that goes for business and personal as well.
And you walked away and you're back into it. You mentioned B, who's fighting King of the Cage. You're working with her. Yeah,
fighting for her title. Yeah.
And how is everything going with that camp? It seems like all systems are go right now.
Yeah, things are great. B's super tough. I mean, she was just on the Survivor. She's an atomweight. She's badass, man. And, she trains really hard. I have a great relationship with her strength and conditioning coach, Coach Terry out in Houston. Her boxing coach, Coach Navarro. Her wrestling coach, Coach Jafari. He's one of Donald Cerrone's coaches. I think the world of them, and he's another one that I'll continue to help her through her journey. But I'm not looking to get back and climb that mountain again. And I really wanted to be the face of the UFC and of weight cutting for a short period of time. Meaning, I wanted to get to the top to say, hey, you guys don't have to kill yourselves to make weight. You don't have to cut this much weight. Here's the system. Here's the formula. You don't need me. Follow this. Learn how to manage your own weight, and then I can go and do something else. That was always the plan. It was never to be like the other people that make a full-time career out of doing this. It's just not what I wanted. So, I'll keep a few of them, and then that's it. I'll be happy and healthy.
Well, it doesn't seem like you're going to be out of the game anytime soon. Jose Shorty Torres is very young in his career. We know that he signed, I believe, a 4-fight contract. He won his debut. There is no indication that 4-fight contract is going to come and go and then it's not going to get re-signed. Obviously, B also fighting for her belt for King of the Cage. You have Jesse who's going to work with you. So it doesn't seem like you're done, but it almost seems like you might be overtaking on new clients unless they prove something to you, rather than you having to prove something to them.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, after Shorty's fight, I could show you. I got so many messages from people. Hey man, I fight in 3 seconds, and I need to cut 40 pounds, and I got to fight in 10 days, and I need to cut 20 pounds. And no, that's just not who I am. It's not what I want to do. Never wanted to do that. I don't think it's safe. I don't think it's healthy, and it's just too stressful. And I'm not gonna listen. If I was like these other people that just walked away from their athletes and blamed their athletes, I could have maybe saved my reputation and my career and made a lot of money. But I just who I am as an individual means more to me than anything else. And my integrity means more to me than anything else. And nobody could say that I've ever done anything unethical. Not everybody can say that. And so, I get messages. I'll answer a bunch of questions. I have a couple high school wrestlers hit me up, and I'll try to give them information. And I'll always do that. That's just something that I'll always do. But as far as, maybe getting involved in another massive camp, I don't really see it in the cards for me anymore. I spend a lot of time with a lot of other families, and the way things panned out, just really not my cup of tea.
Lou, the stuff that we've talked about in this interview alone, the cycle that Shorty went through, what people are eating as opposed to, what they probably would be eating if they weren't in a fight camp or if they were trying to walk around a little bit lighter naturally. These are not, they have a dollar sign attached to them. Most people in your field, they wouldn't go on a podcast and break it all down. So it sounds to me like you said, it was never a long-term career that you were making out of this. But why is it that you're so willing to be very open about what someone was eating, what they were doing to lose weight, how you feel about water cutting, how you feel about USADA coming in? Yet, if you go to any other camp, this has a price tag on it.
It's simple, and I've always been this way because it's not a secret. Health and fitness is not a secret. And the people that make the millions and millions of dollars are the ones that make other people think that they have this magic formula, this proprietary formula, that you have to pay all this money just to get the same BS meal plan that you can get online from Joe Schmo the bodybuilder. It's again, I got into this field 18 years ago because I don't care what people think, Ryan. I don't care what they think about anything that I say. It's the truth. I want to help and save every single person that I could ever do and come in contact with. And I can't do that if I keep my mouth shut and only charge a large amount of money, for information that you can get anywhere. I've done countless free seminars in hopes that I get an email from somebody saying, hey man, I came to your seminar and I lost 20 pounds and you changed my life. You saved my life and I feel great. To me, that's money in the bank. That's money in the bank. And that's how I've always been, and I'll always be that way. I will not have a smoke and mirror bullshit show like all these other people. It's simple. You want to know what it takes? Be disciplined. I put up information on my Instagram all the time. I have messages from people that say, I follow you, and just based off of your post, I've lost 20 pounds. There is no smoke and mirrors here. That's the difference. I have nothing to hide. I have no problem saying exactly what happened in every single one of the fight camps that I've ever been involved in. But I know that it would contradict what other people have said, so I keep my mouth shut. But when it comes to my protocol, no secret, no smoke and mirrors. We're going to eat protein, carbs, and fats. We're going to drink a gallon of water every day. We're going to use the sauna. As a matter of fact, it is funny to me that there are several fighters that when I sat down to work with and I explained my protocol, that I love using the sauna several weeks out of the fight. Most athletes wait to the last day, Ryan, to use the sauna to cut weight. The last day. Here comes nutrition talking about, 8 weeks out, we're going to go use the sauna. They looked at me like I was crazy. They looked at me like I had 6 heads. No. Guess what? Follow them on Instagram. They're not even in fight camps and they're sitting in saunas. I wonder why they're sitting in saunas. Maybe I do know what I'm talking about. But I'm always going to put it out there.
And, you're working on your next venture while still working with fighters in the professional MMA field. But before we get into what that venture is, I do have one question, because you're working with top 1% of people who, they don't need to lose that 30 pounds because their doctor said, look, you're going to die in early age if you don't. You're working with the people who need to lose that extra 3 to 4 pounds to be able to make weight, to turn around and put it back on as soon as they step off the scale, so long as they do it correctly. But you see a lot of fighters who talk about getting their body tested for this, that, and the other thing. What are their blood tests come back that say this is something that's going to help them long term as far as what they're eating or like how much they're lifting. Those tests that I'm talking about. How do you feel about those tests?
Mm-hmm. I'll say this. This is a joke, but it's kind of serious. I forget what number it is, but you remember the Rocky movie where he fought the Russian?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the Russian was hooked up to all these machines and he had all this lab work and all this performance-enhancing studying and testing done, right?
Yes.
And Rocky was doing what? Training in the woods, running with a log on his back, no tests done, and who won the fight?
Rocky.
Oh, okay, Rocky did. So, yeah, that's a movie, and people are going to criticize me, and that's great, good for them. The point is this: as a matter of fact, I had somebody once say to me about one of the guys that missed weight. Well, you didn't know their body fat percentage when they started, so I think that had a lot to do with it. Oh, I'm sorry. Because whether their body fat percentage was 90 or 5, we had to lose the same number of weight. and we still have the same length of time. I don't care what numbers you have. Because here's the thing. I worked with a fighter who had blood tests done, okay? He had blood tests done. And based off of his blood test, he was prescribed a diet, and there are books on this. Well, based off of your blood type, your body responds best with these carbs, these proteins, and these fats. You've heard of this before, right?
Yeah, and enzymes and all of that stuff, how your body breaks it down.
Correct. And then after a while, guess what? They weren't feeling too good. So they went and they spent $15,000, I believe was the number, on more blood work to find out what foods cause inflammation in their body. Because they were getting injured a lot, their recovery was bad, they felt weak. And you know what was on that list that came back as to what foods caused inflammation?
Carbs.
Every single food that was on the blood type test diet. So the blood type diet told him what to eat. Also was all the food that caused him inflammation. So you know what we did? We pulled all the food that caused him inflammation, threw the blood test diet out, and you know what happened? He felt phenomenal. His weight came down, no issues and no injuries, and recovery was great. I'm not saying that the tests don't help. I'm not saying that the tests don't work. All I'm saying is you can find the test to show you improve anything. Because at the end of the day, the placebo effect is the most powerful test you'll ever get, period.
And you talk about this being a blood work diet book and how
Correct.
there are a lot of people, and again, you're not at a loss of walking into a Barnes & Noble's or a half-price book or whatever you want to go get your literature to find a plethora of options for dietary books. Well, you're getting ready to kind of put out your own book, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on it for a number of years, but that's my plan. My plan is to put together all of my protocols that I have used, that have worked, and mock, meal plans, and more importantly, as I preach from day one, the mental nutritional side of things, because to me, that's the most valuable thing. That's where I think a lot of these fighters, they rely on their size versus their mindset. It's another thing that Shruti and I do really, really well. And when I do put this book together, and I do put this book on the market, a decent portions of the book for whatever I decide to sell it for, which is not going to be a lot of money, a portion of it is going to go to so many different charities just because that's the way it should be. Because it's never about that for me. It'll never be about that for me. So it's a mental health book involved with a weight cutting kind of guideline, because I don't want these athletes needing to hire people like me. I just don't. You don't need it. You need it once. You need to understand it. Once you understand it, then you're good.
So, in a perfect world,
the other thing I found, and not to cut you off, and I'm not going to mention anybody's names, but I've worked and helped a lot of people, okay? And I've given them all the tricks of the trade, and guess what? They've turned around, created their own business, motivational speaking, writing books, and everything like that. I don't think my name got mentioned once in helping transform, where they once was. So it's irrelevant. It's going to happen. So if I just put my own out there and then let everybody else kind of do their thing, then I did my part. I just want to help as many people as I can.
And of course, we've avoided it for so long. When you and I have talked, it was he who shouldn't be named, or we both know who we're talking about. Well, that person is Mike Dolce, and we know that Mike Dolce has put out a book. He may have put out a couple at this point. So,
he put out a few, and I think he won Trainer of the Year award. I don't think there was any other trainers running, but yeah, he's won that award a few times, and I think he put out 6 Weeks to Shred, which is just that just proves that you're all about smoking mirrors and a sellout.
Well, and again, the 6 Weeks to Shred. What happens after 6 weeks is over? What is your book going to say after the 6 weeks?
I'll tell you what happens after his 6 Weeks to Shred book is over. You have to buy the other one that he puts out, and then the other one, and then the other one. I want to put out one that just helps people understand how to do it themselves and to never need it again. That's the difference. And I'm also honest about what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah. So obviously this conversation has been a little bit more direct. It's been a little bit more in depth. But I think this is something that I know you wanted to talk about for a while. It was something that you and I have been able to talk about behind closed doors. But there was just something about it that it needed to be out there. It needed to be stated that these fighters that are missing weight, A, changing the weight time or adding weight classes isn't going to help anything. B, that anyone who's trying to sell you, magic beans, if you're willing to buy it, you're going to buy it. But at the end of the day, it's a conscious decision to not go through a McDonald's drive-thru, to not eat, at 2 a.m. after spending a night of power drinking at a bar. It really is that.
It is. And let me ask you a question. Has Lockhart had an athlete to make weight on the scale, yes or no?
You would be able to answer that question better than I have. I don't think that he's gone win this.
Right, but he's had an athlete make weight, right?
Yes,
we
of
can
course.
agree on that. And Dolce has had athletes make weight on the scale, right?
Yes, as if you ask him, he's undefeated, but we both have proved that to be wrong.
And Perfecting Athletes has also had clients make weight on the scale, and Nutrition has also had clients make weight on the scale. Now, Lockhart has had athletes miss weight. Nutrition has had athletes miss weight. Perfecting Athletes has had athletes miss weight, and so has Dolce. So does that mean that we all don't know what we're talking about, or we all do know what we're talking about? The point is that all the systems clearly work. And I can say whatever I want to say about Dolce specifically. He obviously his protocol does work, however he chooses to do it. Athletes have made weight. But the reality of it is it still does come down to a discipline issue, and that's just the reality of it. Some are safer than others, I will say that. But
is that going to be a hard thing to try and convey in this book that you're putting together? Because at that point, what you're asking people to do is something that if they were willing to do on their own, they wouldn't go out and buy the book in the first place, which is personal accountability.
Correct. I mean, it's as simple as this, Ryan. If I said to you, Ryan, do me a favor, every week out of your paycheck, I want you to take $100 and I want you to put it in the bank. At the end of the month, how much money should you have?
$400 extra.
Okay, now if you only have $250, what the hell happened?
I didn't put the money in the bank I was supposed to.
That's nutrition for you. I don't care if you are a vegan, a vegetarian, a meat eater, carnivore diet, intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, ketogenic diet, Dolce diet. I don't care. It's calories in versus calories out. The law of thermodynamics always wins. We can get into a debate whether carbs is a better fuel source than fat, or sugar is a good fuel source versus this, or which protein source is best. Those are all debatable. But there is a law of thermodynamics that states calories in versus calories out. If you are burning more calories than you eat, regardless of where they come from, you're going to lose weight. If you're not losing weight, then you are not burning as many calories as you think, and you are eating way more calories than you should be. It's really that simple.
Wow. Spoken like a true nutritionist. So,
or somebody who's batshit crazy and yelling and screaming, who's just passionate about what they do and actually gives a shit.
Yeah. Well, and it always kind of, and again, I've struggled with weight. I think that anyone who goes through their entire life saying they've never struggled with weight is probably fabricating a portion of that. How large that portion is, I don't know. But it makes me, it's almost laughable then, Lou. It's almost laughable that you have not just in performance institutes, in higher sports that people are doing this, but I mean, there are doctors that you should be able to go to. You get your yearly checkup, and a doctor tells you, your cholesterol's high, your weight's off, you need to go on a diet. But they never tell you what diet.
Correct.
Why?
Or they just tell you, oh, your cholesterol's high. They don't ask you what you're eating. They don't ask you if you're exercising. They just prescribe you a pill to take care of the problem. How about you ask that person what their diet is? How about you recommend it? You know how many doctors, listen, unfortunately, I do have a lot, and you know, Ryan, we spoke off the air. I have a lot of medical ailments that have been going on in my body for a very long time. Okay, and I have seen the best doctors in the world, top doctors in the world. I've been misdiagnosed by the so-called best and top doctors in the world. And you'd be surprised out of how many of those doctors that after we're done talking about what's going on with me, I'm giving them nutritional advice. And they're a Harvard grad medical doctor.
So what, did they just ignore this part when they were going to Harvard med school? Did they just ignore nutrition? Because
it's probably, they just touch the subject and then they keep it moving. It's easier to take it, in the words of a very good friend of mine who asked me for help when they found out that they were borderline diabetic. I said, I'm not going to just tell you what to eat. I'm going to explain to you, A, what that means, B, what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, and why. And their response was, never mind, it's easier to take a pill. That's just the way that it works. That's just the way that most people think. It's easier to just take a pill. And that's what I find, and it's funny because that's actually one of the things that Jeff Novitzky said to me is that most of the time what he feels is that a lot of these athletes just want that fight week, quick fix versus kind of what you do, more of like a lifestyle change, life coach all year round. And I said, you hit the nail on the head. Nobody wants to listen to me all year round. They just want to be told, all right, in 4 days, drink 3 gallons of water, eat this, and this, take 47 baths with Epsom salt and rubbing alcohol, and you're on weight and you're good.
It's there's an episode. I don't know if you ever watched Scrubs when it was on the air. I
remember a few episodes. Yeah, I did watch that show. Yeah.
There was one where Dr. Kelso was dealing with an honorary patient who, rather than wanting to go on a strict diet, lose weight, she wanted to have like a gastric bypass surgery. And this is where it gets scary to me because step one is a doctor is just going to prescribe you a pill and that's going to take care of the issue. Until that pill no longer takes care of the issue. And then we have people who are wanting to go on these dangerous medical procedures because now that's going to fix the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't that scare you as a person, as a life coach, as a nutritionist, as a weight management specialist? Because from what I'm gathering, I have literally gotten more out of how to manage a diet and how to manage what you're eating from you and Genevieve Ashworth, who, by the way, is pregnant. Congratulations to her. Very excited for that.
Congratulations to her. She's awesome and a big fan of hers. Congratulations.
So, like, is this a possible future that we're going to see for people? Is they're just going to go and get a surgery and it's going to take care of it?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's going to be the trend. And it's sad and it's frustrating. And again, and that's one of the reasons why, for I can't even remember how long now, how many out of those years of me being in the industry, I despise the industry. I actually despise the health and fitness industry because it's built on vanity. It's built on how you look externally, not how you feel physically, mentally, and emotionally, more important. It's built on lies. It's built on smoke and mirrors. It's built on fitness models who are on a ton of steroids, posing with a bottle of probiotics, trying to convince you that they look the way that they do because they take this probiotics. These probiotics. It's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors and lies, and that's the unfortunate thing. And we live in a society where everybody wants that quick fix. If I could just take a pill and look the way that I want, versus having to get up at 6 a.m., going to run or work out or eat healthy or whatever, they're going to take the pill because it's just less work, it's less effort. And that's the frustrating thing for me and that's why I have fired so many clients in my quest in working in gyms because I'm tired of you paying me, not listening to me, when I know that if you just listened, it would work. So guess what? I can't work with you anymore. But unfortunately, it is. I think you're right. That's the way it's going to go. It's trendy, so everybody's going to jump on the next trend. And unfortunately, every trend that comes out is just somebody else trying to sell you a bunch of bullshit, smoke and mirrors, and create something or convince you that it's proprietary when there's nothing proprietary about healthy food and exercise. There's nothing proprietary about it, period.
Man, you must really hate the Sports Illustrated body issues.
I don't even look at those magazines. I don't read them. I think they're horrible. I don't read. It's funny when I meet people, they're like, "Oh, do you know so-and-so?" No, I don't know anybody in the industry. I don't care to. It doesn't mean that there aren't great people. It doesn't mean that there aren't smart people. It doesn't mean that there's not people who know what they're doing and can help. I just rather not be a part of it. And my goal is to try to cure people mentally first, then physically. And I always say this, you can tell the difference between somebody who is great at health and fitness versus decent or not even good and Ryan, I want you to try this. Go up to somebody who is a so-called fitness expert or nutrition expert and go, "Hey, excuse me, I know you don't know me, but can I just tell you what I'm eating, and I want you to tell me what you think about it." And if they tell you their honest opinion, you walk away from them immediately. Because in my opinion, they don't know what they're talking about. And it doesn't mean that they're not educated. Because for me, it's, well, let me ask you a question, Ryan. How do you feel? And if you said, "Man, I feel great." And if I said, "Ryan, are you getting good results?" "Yeah, I'm getting great results." Well, then who the hell am I to change what you are doing? Just because of my ego, you need to do what I say? No. So if that person just changes it without asking you those two questions, let it go in one ear and out the other. Because if you feel good and you're happy with the way that you look and feel, I don't care if you stand on your head and you eat dirt. If you're healthy and happy, mentally, physically, and emotionally, keep doing it. Does not have to be the nutrition way.
Wow. Thank you.
And that's the difference.
And Lou, you've really kind of gotten into this, and we've gotten into it so much more than we normally do when you and I are talking on the air. So I do want to thank you. And hopefully what this show does is it really opens up people's eyes because, if these diets aren't working for those upper 5% athletes, it's not to say it can't work for you, but it's something that you really need to take stock into and say, look, there is no quick fix. There is no beanstalk pill. And, I really can't thank you enough for really having that discussion and kind of putting it all out there because I know that this was something that frustrated you for a long time.
Very much so, and I appreciate you, giving me the platform to ask me the questions that you did and allow my voice to be heard. And I can only hope that people can take and learn from this. And, if there's anybody that obviously views it in a negative way, that's okay too. I appreciate you as well. And I appreciate everything that you do, Ryan. I think you're one of the best. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you more so than anybody else, because I respect you and you're going to ask, the tough questions, and you're going to dig and you're going to do the things that need to be done. And I just respect you and I can't thank you enough.
It's my pleasure, Lou. But before we let you go, like we said, you're not done with mixed martial arts yet. So where can we see you next? Where can we find you?
So like I said, I have Dean Wayne fighting for the title coming up in a few weeks. I believe it's 16 days for King of the Cage, atomweight. My Instagram is Loutrition, LOUTRITION. And no matter what, I will always keep putting out information, mental nutrition, actual, physical nutrition. And I kind of poke fun at the industry and try to educate as much as I can. So that'll never change. And, so you can check me out there. My Facebook is Loutrition and Twitter is @Lou_Trition. And my website is at loutrition.net. You can reach out to me via email if you guys have any questions or some hate mail. It's all welcomed, and I'll respond as soon as I can. But I do appreciate it.
Thank you again, Lou, and always a pleasure having you on the SFLC podcast. as the podcast moves forward. You know, obviously Mike Heck took his newest venture to Fansided, and while we will miss him greatly, we know that he is also destined to do great things with Fansided and the new podcast they have going on.
Absolutely, and I wish him nothing but the best, and I'm just super happy that, Ryan, this is your podcast, and you guys need to tune into his podcast all the time, because he has great guests on, and he's just a great, genuine, knowledgeable, hard-working person, and I can't say enough good things about you, Ryan.
Thank you very much, Lou. We look forward to seeing you for King of the Cage and all of the fighters you'll be working with, but we just know this time around, the fighters that you're going to be working with, they're a little bit more sincere.
Yes, I appreciate it, and hope so as well.
Well, you have a great day, Lou. We look forward to seeing all of your success in and out of the cage for the days to come.
Thanks, Ryan. You too, and keep up the good work with yourself physically, man. You look great. You're in great shape, and I couldn't be more proud.